Session is really focused on, I called it branding and budgeting just because it was easy, but it's really introducing us to some of the ideas of, okay, we're doing these practices. They might be costing us a little more. What's the value in them? Do consumers value them as well? Are there conscious consumers out there that are willing to pay a little more and that want to hear our stories about what we're doing to restore on-farm ecosystems and the greater services that we're providing to the greater ecosystem? So really, hi Matt, thank you. I think we're just going to wait another 2 minutes while everyone jumps on. But today we're really kind of I think a lot of people are pretty excited about this conversation because as farmers, we're very excited about what we're doing to regenerate the land. We want to share that story, and also we're just interested in, how can we translate some of these services and these costs onto the greater community, and the idea of a conscious consumer, and are we alone in this? Like, what are other kind of not just farmers, but also other businesses, regenerative businesses out there. So I think we'll wait for another 2 minutes. And then we'll introduce our guest speakers. So Trinity and Matt, and I think we got a little teaser with the agenda. We sent out a link to one of your big projects, Malcolm Market, that we're going to hear about today. But just to give us a rundown of today, we're going to really dive into this, and it's going to be really fun for us to learn this new information. We'd love to have a nice interactive kind of Q&A with all the farmers on today. It is recorded, so those who can't make it, we're going to also have that. We had quite a few questions kind of rolling in as people mulled over this. So it was fun to see all of that. And then Megan and I will lead a session on getting into, how do you make decisions and prioritize over what soil health practices to use. Our lab results are coming in next week. We've done some work. What's the cost and benefit of this practice versus this one? Or if I'm going to if I'm going to adopt a new practice, what's it going to cost me and what's going to be the benefit? So we're kind of getting into some nuts and bolts later in the conversation. So that's what we have online for tonight. And so I'd like to go ahead and start. And Trinity, I think if you want to kind of give us a little background on how you came to your work today, and then kind of dive into you guys' baby, Malcolm Market. We're really excited on, some opportunities of how farmers might join you and what that might look like. And so yes, let me know if you need help sharing your screen, and we'll just dive on.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Trinity. I am the co-founder and market director of Malcolm Market. And I have Matt also here with me. He's a co-founder of Malcolm Market as well, along with many other things. I am currently a student at the University of Hawaii. I am pursuing a degree in business, and I joined the Malcolm Market team back in 2019. Before it was Malcolm Market, I joined the team of Albizia Project, working with them. If you folks are familiar with the Albizia Project, a little bit about what they do is they remove the invasive Albizia trees from our forest here, find ways to utilize the wood here in Hawaii. And then, we saw this need for a new species of business that really understands that type of regenerative practice, the removal of invasive species, utilizing the wood, and then, giving back to the community. So we created Malcolm Market, which is a eco-conscious marketplace for consumers who want to support radically ethical artisans. That's just a little blurb about who we are. I can share my screen so I can get more into, who we are as Malcolm Market. Oh, sorry, wrong screen. Okay, weird. Sorry, I'm gonna pause. It's pulling up. What screen are you guys seeing right now?
It just says started screen sharing.
Okay.
Maybe I'll tag in for a little bit while you try to sort your tech.
Yeah, well, I set that up.
Okay, no problem. Hello, hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Kamakani Lynch. Thank you so much, Indy and Megan, for inviting us to be here. Yeah, as Trin said, a co-founder of Malco Market. We met through the Purple Prize's Indigenous Innovation Incubator. And outside of advising and helping start up, as Trin says, these new species of businesses, in my day job, I serve as a director of sustainability initiatives for the University of Hawaii system. But really my passion lies in helping to support entrepreneurs just like Trinity, just like yourselves, who understand that in today's world, it's not enough just to be sustainable. We actually have to be moving beyond that towards actively repairing, restoring, and regenerating our aina, so that we can heal our lands, so that we can heal ourselves. And so that's a real driving force. So that is just me by way of introduction, and also to burn some time for Trin to get her tech started. We thought that we would do this more as because of all the Q&A that was sent in. We want to spend as much time as we can addressing the specific questions that were sent in. So there was a chunk of about a half dozen questions or so that I think Trin touches on in the presentation she's put together. So without all that said, I'll turn it back to you, Trin.
All right, sorry about that technical difficulties. So yes, I'm gonna talk a little bit about our market, who we are, what we do, and then I'm gonna go in a little bit about, how we market ourselves as a regenerative business and how we are trying to get people to understand this new type of business. So here we are. So this is a quick GIF that we created to help people kind of understand the process in which our artisans use to create their products. And again, from a marketing standpoint, this is really helpful because when you try to explain your regenerative business, many people get lost and confused. So taking time to create these types of visuals is really helpful. And sometimes you don't even need the words to explain. It's kind of self-explanatory here. And this is a little bit about our process. We look for artisans who, look to use local product, local materials, like either local species, like coconut fronds to make coconut hats, invasive albizia trees to make surfboards, and locally grown stuff to make products like the soaps and so much more. So just a quick visual, and to get a better understanding of who our artisans are is, if you folks are familiar with Danya, this is one of our favorite girls. She creates these native Hawaiian species pins and other products, and she directly contributes back to ecosystem restoration as a conservationist herself. And by creating these pins, she's bringing awareness and education about how some of them are critically endangered, some of are already gone extinct, and bringing that awareness is so important. So as that's something we highlight for Malco Market, is regenerating the native species that we have here. This is Courtney from Pahiki Caskets. If you're familiar with her, she creates these caskets using 100% locally salvaged wood. No toxins and chemicals go into the wood treatments. That way they're perfectly safe to be put back into the ground. So these are examples of how people can be radically ethical in their sourcing and intention behind their products. And those are the type of people we look for a MALCA certified vendor. And so our MALCA certification tool that we built off of the Aloha Aina Economics Future self-assessment tool, this helps to empower artisans to demonstrate how these higher standards that we hold ourselves to, as farmers, not just organic, but the whole regenerative aspect, the soil aspect. There is so much more that goes into farming that people don't understand. And that's what we are trying to create here with this certification tool. How do you set yourself apart from other farmers around the world? And why is your product so unique? And why should someone buy your product versus, another product? So we created this tool to help you folks showcase and highlight that. And along with this tool, not only are you able to represent our emblem on your products, but you're also connected with like-minded artisans who have also been certified using our Unruler platform. So if you are a MALCA certified vendor, you'll be put into our Unruler platform where you'll be able to share, collaborate directly with other farmers, with other small business owners around Hawaii who have very like-minded practices as you. You also have a library of resources that we've created, from things like eco-friendly packaging to different types of, podcasts and things that just touch base on this type of business, owning a small business, a business in Hawaii, all those different things we are creating now to just help you folks along the way. And then connecting back again to, why it's so important to create visuals to help people understand what you're doing, because it is really hard for myself trying to explain what a regenerative market and all these things is really hard, especially when people are not necessarily caring or looking to learn. So by creating these visuals, like we created this lookbook to give out to people when we are explaining, it's just very simple. Our products, our vendors, a little bit about us, and then a little bit, about what our why and why it's important to support local. And that leads me into the main thing that you can do is talk about your why. And I love this quote. It's people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. This is huge for us because, like I mentioned so many times, it is so hard to get people to understand. So instead of trying to force them to understand, just do what you do and show them why you do it. I think another farmer that I love their content is Poli Poli Farms. I'm not sure if any of you have seen their content, but it's beautiful. They do an amazing job of telling their story before selling their products. And I think that's huge for businesses like us. Selling who we are and why we do what we do is really going to sell so much more than our product. People are going to understand then why your product might be a little more expensive than fruits that they can buy at the grocery store, or, things like that, is because they see your face, they know who you are, they know your story, they know your history, and they know all the work that you do. So showcasing that, highlighting that, it's really the key to selling your products, is selling yourself first. And that sounds terrible, but you really got to sell who you are and your intentions.
Beautiful. Trin, is that my segue back to me?
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. I'm just actually realizing that I responded to a question that was sent to the hosts and panelists, and I'm not sure that everybody in the chat saw it, so I'll just give voice to it. But Drew asked, are there any existing farmers already MALCA market certified? the short answer is not yet. We're actually revamping the CERT tool. So partially so that farmers can also apply, but also just to make it more more intuitive interface. This screenshot here is from planting day. That this really grounds Malka Market. So one of the key questions that came in from your community is, what is a regenerative enterprise, and is a regenerative enterprise the same as a regenerative market? That first part of that question, so a regenerative market would be made up of multiple regenerative enterprises. So that first question, what is a regenerative enterprise, is really key, is one of my favorite questions to ask. So I've been working and thinking and working in this space for quite some time now, at least back till 2015, maybe even before that. So I have a really brief slideshow to share that was really helpful for me when I saw it, to help understand what we're talking about when we say regenerative enterprise. But before we toggle over to that, I'm going to ask Trinity that same question. So what to you, Trin, what is a regenerative enterprise?
I think for me, the simplest way to explain it is, most people know what sustainable businesses is a business that cares about the land and tries to do their best to lighten their footprint or do good for the land. But a regenerative business is one that does one step further and replenishes what they take. So, not only are you creating products that are better for the land, better for the people, but you're also giving back and replenishing whatever you took. And it could be not only like land, trees, all those things that people just assume when they hear regenerate, restore. It's like, oh, they're planting trees. It also gives back to the culture and the people in that community. So whatever you're doing is giving back and creating more than what you took. That's like my idea of what a regenerative business is.
Beautifully said. I'm going to keep asking you that question, because every time you give me an answer, it gets more and more eloquent. That's great. And so, as I was mentioning earlier, the image on screen really grounds our work. And Malka Market, the older brother of Malka Market, is the Albizia Project. So this is a collaboration of a restoration project that both of those startup regenerative enterprises are involved with. And the Albizia Project was able to remove and harvest a number of very large Albizia trees from this 2-acre parcel up at Waikeakua forest at the top of Manoa Valley. And on the right-hand side, that's one of our buddies who's planting a koa tree. And so our vision is to bring back the native koa and ohia forests that once stood at the back of Manoa Valley. And the enterprises like the Albizia Project are utilizing that material to create high value, high margin products, because the story is so compelling, right? That it's not, you're not just buying an Albizia lamp that's really nice to look at. You're actually buying a product that act of buying that product directly supports restoration efforts. So to Trin's earlier point, that stories are so compelling, and all of the intentionality and additional thought and diligence that you put into taking those extra steps are hugely valuable, especially in terms of like your brand. So it may not immediately translate to like a value in terms of a price premium that the marketplace will bear. However, it does, and it will over time, really build a strong brand that people really don't buy experience, really don't buy products. They're actually buying experiences. So if they're buying, they could go anywhere to buy, produce. But if your story, is really compelling, then they're going to actively seek you out for that. you can tell that I'm kind of obsessed with these types of topics. So I'm gonna do an awkward segue to that answer, my answer to regenerative enterprise. And so I think, oh, Trin, can you do it? I'm gonna thank you. And so, right, oh, no, that's my whiteboard. Now I'm doing the same. Okay, here we go. Okay, so, business as usual or status quo is optimized to maximize financial profit, but at what cost? And this is just the world that we live in, right? Where the ways that our businesses are developed, they're optimized to literally to convert all of our primary forms of capital. All of the living world, but also you see here that these are like social and cultural capital, right? Experiential capital, intellectual capital, spiritual capital. What I mean by some of these items, spiritual, I mean not in the sense of like religion, but in the sense of our interconnectedness. Intellectual, that's their like intellectual property. So ideas can now be patented and then monetized because they can be patented. Experiences can similarly and often are monetized. We have direct experience with this in Hawaii with our tourism industry, right? We know we've certainly, many of us who have lived here for generations can feel the difference between a manufactured experience and an authentic experience, right? Cultural capital, this is cultural appropriation, the exploitation of culture, the way that Hawaii has been, for many years kind of presented as this paradise that is there at the beck and call of visitors. All of these types of, these are examples of different forms of our primary wealth that can be optimized or converted, stripped, transformed into financial capital. So what a regenerative business does is actually evolves that. We're talking about creating a new species of business, right? So that you're still able to be financially solvent, right? And make more money than you're spending so that you can support your family, create a livelihood, all of those things. And we're also actively modifying this problematic extractive global paradigm because we're holding ourselves to higher standards and we're being intentional of optimizing our business to replenish these primary forms of wealth. Doesn't mean that your business has to be replenishing all of these forms of capital in order to be considered a regenerative enterprise. This I found was just useful for me. It expanded my mental framework of what was available in terms of building a business. So there's so much more available than just building a business to maximize your financial profits. Instead, we can build our businesses so that they generate healthy profit margins because there's a deeper purpose. We are taking those surplus profits, we are directly supporting our families, other families that are directly invested in the health of our aina, in the health of our islands. And maybe we are directly investing it into things like restoration projects, or in the case of Laulima, our girl Danya, she dedicates a percentage of her profits to specific conservation initiatives, and she revolves that. So there's multiple beneficiaries. So there is a lot of creativity that can be harnessed to create your regenerative enterprise. Really, the key thing is that you're seeking to not just minimize harm, but to actively restore and repair the damage. Just seeing a question here in the chat, so I'm going to pause the screen share. It says, we're hearing it's important to, oh, Trin, you already got that. Brilliant. I'll jump back into the rest of the questions then that we got, like you folks sent in. Do we have any experience with agri-tours and branding? Branding, yes, as Chin shared earlier. Agri-tours, no, not directly. How do we get consumers to care about soil health? All they care about at this point is organic or not. Yeah, that's a challenge. And similarly, we actually, it's interesting to see how the term regenerative is now a buzzword, right? And to see the ways that existing businesses that are not like, they haven't demonstrated that they're not at the leading edge of kind of regenerative enterprise are adopting the term because there's this trend, right? I think the next question here, how do you find the conscious consumer? These are related, you know? In fact, these three questions here, how to market your approach and values, even if your systems aren't dialed in yet. Let's each have a turn at responding to these trends. So I'll just riff first. Like, look, our systems are not dialed in. Our systems are evolving, will constantly be evolving. What is important is how we express our values, right? How we carry ourselves, how we show up through our actions. And our actions will speak far louder than our words. And what is also true is that social media is like a key tool in this day and age. It can amplify that message. So I think it's really key. And one of the things that's really important to us is those compelling visuals and the beautiful imagery, because we really want to represent our artisans and vendors who are part of our network in the best light and really showcase the value that they bring. So, beautiful photography, thoughtful design. It helps having an architect in the founding team. But we've also learned just to value it and actively like cultivate those skills ourselves. Because in this day and age, the images are everything, right? Those photos, how we tell stories is really key. So I think essentially my answer to these three is like, it's the answer to these three questions from my perspective lies in storytelling ability and especially authenticity of your storytelling. What about you, Trin? What are your thoughts on these three questions?
Yeah, I think to kind of touch off of what you said, like this whole term regenerative is it's often referred to as a new thing, but in reality, it's actually something that our ancestors were skilled at hundreds of years ago. They lived completely regeneratively and sustainably off the land. So I think, if you use that and, you pull away from like, oh, this new thing, regenerative business, and go, no, it's not new. We've been doing it for years. Our farm has been doing this. It's not new. It's not trending. It's important. Focusing on that. And also, social media does a great job at really bringing out negativity and blasting sadness all over. I think you can use that, so to say, in showing, they may not care about it now, but show them the negative effects. I think that's a really useful type of branding, is showing them, farms that are big corporate farms that are just destroying the soil. They might think, oh my gosh, this produce is organic, like you said, but show them how, yes, it's organic, but look at how this farm is still destroying the soil. Look at our farm. Look at how, compare and contrast. Show them your soil. Show them this soil. Those are the types of things that are going to sell it. Kind of like, I think someone said, like, are you able to show photography? I think that's really important. Like, people want to see your farm. They want to see your soil. They want to see all that. Show them the dirt, show them the knit and grit of what you do every day. And I think that'll start to sell. I also think you need to not focus on who you're not selling to versus who you actually are selling to. is really important. Like, not everyone is going to be your perfect customer, and you shouldn't waste your time on that. Like, you shouldn't waste your time on people who don't care. If all they care about is organic, then, you know, you kind of just got to let them go. Your customers will come around. The people who do care will find you. And when they do find you, they're going to tell their friends. So don't worry about the people who don't get it. Focus on the people who really do understand. And I think that also connects, like, how do you find that conscious consumer? It really starts with targeting one specific group of people, and it'll grow and grow and grow from there. And then the third one, yeah, it's kind of ties into, like, how do you market your same with your why. Your values are really important. Like, they should be everywhere. Like, you know, if you have labels, put your values on it. You know, your three core values, print them on every label and put them on everything, because again, that really shows your why, and people care about that. At least the right customers care about those kinds of things. So yeah, back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Sharon. We've had some interesting adventures, you know, in exactly this. We've actually had to decline folks who've applied to be artisans, because we want to maintain and be true to that. And I can't tell you the number of times that has just stopped people in their tracks. Not necessarily, I mean, we decline it very nicely and respectfully. But you know, we've been in business competitions where the judges were just floored. And that was actually probably one of the reasons why we won the prize that we did in that competition. So people notice when you are just that being consistent and authentic and committed to those values. Yeah. Okay, moving right along. That's the thing I wanted to chime in on that. How to connect with other businesses and farms to collaboratively market yourselves or offer joint products and services. This is something that we're really interested to actually explore with RCD and with the networks that you folks are building. That tool that Trinity showed in her presentation, powered by Unruler, is something that we're super excited to actually build out and offer, because it's an extension of what we see happening organically at our markets. One of the real interesting phenomenons that happens in our in-person markets is the vendors are so aligned in terms of values. They may have completely different products, but there will always be some commonalities. How do you reduce packaging, right? What like specific questions? What markets have worked? You know, what markets are better than others, right? And this type of just organic information sharing that we observe consistently happening between Mauka artisans and vendors is something that we're really excited about enabling and empowering through a digital platform. But in order to do that, there needs to be a gateway. So how do you ensure that you're stepping into a safe space of shared values, where you're all genuinely there in service to this same you know, greater ideal of restoring soils, of restoring Aina, restoring our people. Anything you want to add to that, Trin?
I was just going to throw it out there as a marketing perspective. Collaborations are huge. They are so popular these days. They are very great for like, people are really interested in collaborative pieces. You know, so if that's something you're interested in and you've never done, I would highly recommend trying it, even if it's just one product with a close friend or, you know, your neighbor farm, someone close, small, start there. But collaborative pieces are really trending and cool and great for marketing.
Yeah, Instagram even has a collaboration feature now. So you can create a post, tag your business partner as a collaborator, and it will show up on their feed as well. What is the best way for farmers to market and brand their products? Is grown using regenerative practices? I just show what you are doing and tell the story of why. I am not really good at the stories feature on these iPhones. We do have in our artisan group some folks who are really good at that, and you can see that because they are just so authentically engaged. Let me throw out a couple. Indigo Elixirs is one that's really good. And they create handcrafted sort of salves and other botanical products from produce that is basically sourced responsibly across the islands as much as possible. They've been at it for quite a long time. What are a couple favorites of yours, Trin, in terms of folks that are like their brand game and their storytelling game is real strong?
I love Laulima Hawaii. As you can tell, one of my favorites. And then I also love Yurei. She does a great job of explaining, like, the clothing industry is such a difficult one to be a part of and to reduce your footprint. So she does a beautiful job of like highlighting, the back end of what she does. And I think that's really big for a clothing company that we don't see a lot. Like, she is very raw with where it's manufactured, who's making the clothes. And I think that's really important. And I think, that tagline right there is like key. Like, that's all you would need right there. Grown using regenerative practices. Put that on with your values, and that is a huge selling point. If you have, the resources to do so, QR codes are really helpful as well. I love that certain products I buy, I can actually scan the QR code and look back to like exactly where this chocolate bar was made. You know what I mean? Where I can see where this chocolate bar, where the chocolate grew, who made it, and et cetera, et cetera. Those are really key points. I work at a restaurant, and that's something we're trying to incorporate now with some of the local meats we just brought in, having that on our menu to show, oh, this veal came from this farm on the Big Island. It is a huge hit for restaurants, and I think that is super helpful if you have the resources to do so.
I'm trying to think, Trin, of that farm on Hawaii Island that we're such big fans of. That she does wraps and stuff in the field.
Aina. It's
yeah.
I'm blanking out too.
It's rattling around in there. Someone else, he's quite radical, and he's like, he's not everybody's cup of tea, and he's a friend of mine, but Daniel Anthony is always at it, like, and he's super into regenerating soil. He does a lot of storytelling about a lot of different issues. His storytelling on soil regeneration practices is quite compelling, and it really shows. I just ran into him over the weekend, that's why I think he's front of mind. But in conversation with him, it's clear that the knowledge that he's sharing is knowledge that is gained from dirt under the fingernails, and so I think the best Aina company, thank you, Trin. The only way to get good at anything is to practice. So you got to suck at something a little bit before you're going to get good at it. There are a couple Continental accounts that I'll have to maybe follow up with that are also doing some really great storytelling that I think offer just references. The key thing is it needs to be really authentic to you. We have about 10 minutes left, and there's this cluster of questions I think we can have a pretty quick answer to, and then we could go into these three. Please, if you have any other questions that you're wondering about, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll do our best to get there. So can farmers be part of the MALCA certification process? Coming soon. Stand by. What are some of the first steps for farmers interested? Stand by. Again, we're really excited about the potential and the opportunity to work with this network and with ORCD. So hopefully we hope to have something up before winter that we can really roll out. Costs and benefits, I can't give the specifics, but what I can tell is that it was really important to us when we built out our financial model that this be something that is accessible and not a prohibitive cost for entry. And what we'll likely do is start with a small pilot even, so that we can keep that cost down as we're learning and building out. So stay tuned for that. And if you're not ready to be part of the market, are there any other suggestions you have to start sharing our story about the regenerative practices we're using? I don't think I have anything else to contribute to what I've already said. It's just start telling the stories about the things, not only like the techniques, but the why. And if you're experimenting, even better. Like the thing that folks who are not engaged in growing don't often understand until they do try to grow something is just how hard it is to grow and to grow well, and just how much of that process is this constant scientific experiment and deep observation, and experimentation, but also like there's this deep research that you're doing right into all of the things. And when you share your process and what you're thinking about, oh, I thought that I'm going to try this because I've been wondering about this. People are there for it. They want to be on that ride with you. Okay, last 3 questions. I'll give voice to this, Trin, and then I'll invite you to tag in with some thoughts. Are there any good examples of farmers you work with that have regenerative enterprises in Hawaii? Is the enterprise often a separate line or endeavor within their larger operation? Trin, you want me to go first?
Oh, yeah. I think for the most part, they're together. Most businesses I know kind of associate them together, and kind of, as we've said so many times, they use that to their advantage to tell their story. And I did mention one of my favorites is Poli Poli Farms, just because they do a very beautiful job of telling their story of regenerative practices, and just their storytelling is amazing. So definitely one of my good examples of a farmer, and yeah, how they connect them and weave them together.
Nice, thank you. An example that came to mind that I have worked with for many years is Kahumana Organic Farm out on the west side. And they've also expanded to include the Kahumana Farm Hub, and are helping to connect farm produce to buyers, all across the islands. It's one of the things I love about Kahumana is Christian is their farm manager. Every time I go and visit, he's experimenting. He's trying something new. He doesn't, like in the marketing, use the word regenerative. He's also a part of a larger social enterprise. And that's always been a struggle as to how to tell the whole story of what that particular enterprise is. But he's been experimenting and is continuously experimenting with things like on-site fertility, green manures, cover cropping, no-till, integrated agroforestry systems, biodiverse polyculture orchards, all of these things. He doesn't use the same words that I use to describe them because my day job is at a university. So I tend to use these overly verbose words to describe these things. But what you do get from their communications is just how committed and how passionate they are about growing healthy food in healthy ways to support healthy families. And if you don't know Christian, if you're able to spend any time, then it's a real treat to be on a farm tour with him. And I'm completely biased because I've worked with him for so long. What I will also say is that it is a joy for me to be in the company of anyone who is passionate about restoring Aina. And in my books, if that's what you're doing, then yeah, like by definition, you meet regenerative enterprise, that definition. You may have better word. You may have words that are more resonant with you, that are more appropriate for your context than regenerative. So I think the key message I hope to deliver here is sort of one of authenticity. Like, the need is so great for businesses that are actively restoring, repairing, and regenerating the world that we need you. We need each of you, and we need your stories deserve to be shared, because in that way we can help bring more people into this practice. What are some steps you recommend? It's probably the last question. Probably, I think we're nearing the end of our time, so maybe this might be the last question. And then I can create an offline answer for this last question to make sure that we just address all the questions that were submitted. But here, the last question for this portion of today's session. What are some key steps you recommend for starting a regenerative enterprise? Do you recommend testing the market, creating a premium line that is regenerative? What if all of your farm products are grown using the same regenerative practices? Well, that's 4 questions. This is interesting because we have some reference points with some of the artisans that we worked with. One, for example, she's a champion of tea, and she's a champion of all different kinds of tea. So she has a line that really fits with that, like locally sourced, homegrown. And then she has a product line that is sourced non-locally, but responsibly. And so that's interesting. In that case, she has a line of products that is Malka certified or certifiable. And then she has all of the others, but the overarching, the underlying, the foundation of the principle that she's expressing is what really resonates and really what matters there. I think the key to starting any regenerative enterprise is, if you think back to that sort of 8 forms of capital mental framework, is to be able to articulate specifically, like, how are you restoring, repairing, regenerating? Is your focus on soil? Is your focus on people? Is your focus on culture? Is your focus on a mix of those things? Is it on something else? That is going to, being able to be real specific in describing the ways that we are expressing our desire to be a regenerative presence and to be a regenerative business, is really going to help people to understand that, oh, you're regenerative because you are restoring, repairing, and regenerating XYZ, whatever it is that's appropriate in your context. Trin, you get the closing thoughts on this, and I'm going to open it to, if you want to respond to this specific question, or if you just have any closing thoughts for this section of the program. Back over to you.
Yeah, I think to just close it out, really, like creating, I can't stress enough, just creating that authentic like self and looking at those questions. Like, I think it's a great idea to create a regenerative line. That's a really good idea. Also, starting with a few products and branding it like that is a good idea to kind of test the market for ourselves. We created our own first products, which are cutting boards made from locally reclaimed wood from Bellows Millwork. So that's our first product. We are ourselves testing the market for it right now. We are seeing that it is harder to sell, these premium high quality products with that additional price of, the regenerative aspect, but we are doing it, and we are working on, who is our target audience for this product. So I definitely would say start small, because like we said, it's not for everyone, and it is definitely a harder like audience to target. Other than that, I think just, remembering not everyone is your customer is like really big, and staying authentic and true to yourself is the 2 things I say are the most important for this type of business.
Nicely done. How do we do, Megan and Indy?
That was great, super inspiring, and yeah, really great start off to this event. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Yeah, please keep in touch and let us know however we can be of service. We're both really excited when you reached out, and yeah, are really passionate about supporting folks that are just like you, because yeah, the more the merrier. It takes a village, right?
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw it out there that I think one of the questions was asking about like, we still promote, or like around that. We love to share the stories of you folks, and even if you're not a Malka vendor or Malka certified, we still love sharing stories about you. So if you're interested, I think I can leave our email, or if you guys can send our email after this, please send us an email, and we would love to feature you on our social media, to help you guys kind of get started with that, and just highlighting your regenerative business. So please feel free to do that. We would totally love to share your stories.
Thank you, guys. I think we have a few minutes, and usually people are shy to use their voice. It's different ways of coming together. So many people shared questions, but I just wanted to open it up in case anybody wants to ask a specific question that's hard to do over chat. If you guys want to voice something, just I don't know, send us a chat. I think we should be able to have you just speak. I don't think it's on mute. But
I don't think they're able to speak except for through chat.
Okay, so let us know via chat if you want to have because we can. I think we could. Would selling food forest garden plant packages be a viable sale with Malka Market? Okay, so let's do it this way, I guess, because I think there is a different dynamic when we have a conversation with voice versus chat. So Trinity and Matt, we had a question come in from Drew asking if selling food forest garden plant packages would be a viable sale with Malka Market. So I guess here's an example of we're not Malka Market certified. There's not that avenue for farmers yet, but is there an option to do kind of a feature and a pilot with a farmer who wants to kind of trial something? So how do you see that kind of being able to play out in the interim between now and working out bringing on farmers for Malka Market certification? So
can I tackle this, Trin? Trinity's my boss, so
Matt looks really excited though.
Gotta check in.
Yeah.
Well,
I also just Drew can talk now, I think.
Nice. Hey, Drew.
Hey, Matt.
Nice. I thought it was you. Let's talk. So not everybody that is selling at our in-person markets are certified. Yeah, it's sort of like the in-person pop-ups were actually conceived of as like a marketing event to support the online certification. We had built out an online cert tool. I think you guys even got to pilot and run through that version. We had to take it down, and we're in the process of, we've been in the process of gathering resources so that we can actually rebuild it. And now we have this also back-end piece that Trini was sharing about. Long story short, you do not have to be Malka certified to participate at the market. You do have to be generally aligned and clearly demonstrate that you are a good match, but you don't actually have to formally go through the certification process. And Trinity is working on some things now that I wish we could share more, but they're still under development, and there may be opportunities. Yeah, exactly. I want to be like, geez, to be able to participate in more of those sort of in-person ones. So yeah, let's talk more offline and explore that possibility, because I do think it'd be a good match. We just want to I want to think about like how best to showcase that in in all of the different ways that we might be able to.
So
How'd I do, boss?
yeah, well, yeah, so Trinity and Matt, I guess one question is because we're working right now with farmers on Oahu, but this recording will actually go out to farmers across the islands. But for those who are on island, what are the options for participating in pop-ups? So in-person events. So how do we stay tuned to those opportunities?
Yeah, if you folks are interested, go ahead and shoot us an email. I dropped it in the chat. We do quarterly markets, so for a year. Our last two is going to be September and December. They are going to be night markets at Vai Collective, and we are always open for new vendors and artisans. So if you're interested, just shoot us an email or a DM. DM is probably the fastest, but I check my emails at least 4 times a week. So a little slower, but DMs is fastest. And then I'll just go ahead and send you a like application form that you can fill out. And yeah, we would love to have you folks. I know we did a collaboration market last December with the Wahine Farmers Directory, and that was really fun. From that, we do have a couple vendors who now come back to every single one of our markets, like Jasmine from Believe Hawaii. So we're always super stoked for new connections and relationships. So we're always interested.
All right, thank you, everybody. I think we're finally at time, and you gave us so much to really sit with. You gave us a lot of really tangible advice too, that is really helpful. And so as I mentioned, we're recording this. We're going to put it up on our own platform. We're also trying to create a network. We're learning as we go. All of us are kind of experimenting with different practices. So it's really good to hear that we don't have to be dialed in. We can share the process. We can share what we're learning. We can share what we are being brave with, what we are willing to take on, and kind of sharing that story of why we feel it and why we're willing to do this. And so thank you. I think this is going to be a whole kind of follow-up. And so for everybody who's staying with us, I'm going to go ahead and switch modes. I'm going to share my screen as well. And now we're kind of diving into, what's next? So just to give you a little background really quick, and Trinity, Matt, if you have to leave, that's great. Thank you for your time. But just to share what we've been through, we are, as a group of farmers, dedicating ourselves as a cohort to learn together what we can do. And so we're working with Oahu, we're going to be working with Kauai, Maui, Hawaii Island, but we're taking soil samples, so not for fertility, but for soil health indicators. We're trying to build up our local lab on Hawaii. It's the first lab. So we're doing so many monumental things together. We're learning about different designs. We're costing them out. So really today's presentation is focused more on okay, if we care so much about this and we want to do it, what's it going to cost us? How do we budget for this? How do we figure this out? It's already hard as farmers. So I'm going to go ahead and, where is next, MM?
I think you're going to have to follow them on Instagram and stay tuned, or email them. I think they might have popped off.
Okay. Can everybody share this or see the screen in front of us right now? Is it full screen and looking good? Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. Get a drink, do something. We're going to switch modes. This is diving a little deep. But basically what we've heard from some of you now that we're into the second to last session is, okay, so we've talked about different practices. You guys know all these different practices, but it's still getting into the weed of things. So that's where we're at, is how do you design these out? How do you cost them out? How do you not get too complex? How do you account for maintenance? How do you look at all of this? And so we're trying to slow everybody down and look at some different tools. So that's what this presentation is really about. And let's see if it'll look. Okay, so throwing out that challenge. So say there are those select few conscious consumers. So Trinity had mentioned, don't focus on who's not going to be your consumer. Focus on those who you do have, who do care. So they're out there. Right now it does feel like there's some education needed. People are educated on, is this organic, is this not? Is this pesticide free? I really care about my health. Is this grown from local farmers? I want to support local economy. Probably the next step is like, okay, are you doing this in a way that's also providing these on-farm ecosystem services? So Trinity spoke on sustainable and how we're trying to take it one step further. And there's a lot of education around this. There's a lot of story to tell because, we're probably not caught up to this yet. There's probably a pretty small group of buyers who are at this point, but they're out there. And so if you're going to try to have a higher cost point and kind of transfer those costs that you're incurring onto those conscious consumers who are probably very willing to pay for it if they do value it, what are those costs? You shouldn't just pull it out of the dark. Like, you should know, okay, I do cover cropping, I do compost application, I do these different practices. This is what it would cost me to do conventionally, but I choose to do it this way because it provides on-farm ecosystem services. It provides services to the greater ecosystem. It prevents nitrogen and phosphorus leaching. It does all these services, and this is the dollar amount that it costs me. I've done the work. Here it is. I'm willing to transfer this. So this is especially valuable for those of you who interface with consumers at farmers markets or who are able to tell the story over your social media. But I'm challenging everyone today. This is what we could get to, and we don't have to get to it alone. One person doesn't have to do it. Once we've done it, a similar practice and a similar operation, you guys can share this information. So just bringing us through today, what we're going to cover. So just a really quick focus on decision making. How do you choose which practices to use, which to prioritize? So you're getting your lab results next week. Or actually this week. So we're doing one-on-one sessions with everybody. So how are you going to use those lab results? What are they going to tell you? How are you going to use those to kind of influence some of your soil health practices that might give you the biggest bang for your buck? Also looking at cost-benefit analysis. So that helps you compare one practice to another. So what's the cost and benefit of cover cropping versus a windbreak right now? Or even between windbreaks, like if I was going to use, synthetic versus a vegetative windbreak, and then also between an existing practice and a new practice. So if I manage weeds using an herbicide and then labor for that versus if I was going to manage weeds with a cover crop for 3 to 5 months, what would that look like? And then the savings that we calculate are different. So we want to just kind of show you how we do that. So the savings for a windbreak is different for carbon amendment and cover crop. So those are the three we've looked at. And then we've done a few cost benefit analysis with farmers in this cohort. So thank you guys. We want to share this information. And like I said, as we develop this, some of this information will be true to your operation or close enough, and we can use this. And then I'm just going to introduce you to the concept of a partial budget, just introducing that term. That is more involved, but that basically looks at not only the cost and benefit for the practice, but also like what's your whole operation potential of increased revenue and yield. And then we just want to hold a really brief question on what we can answer about our one-on-one visits this week around lab results, costing, and design. So a lot of your questions that you have individually probably are similar to the group, and I'm going to launch a poll, and I really appreciate your help. So, all right. We're going to zip through a lot of this. I'm watching the time, but so your lab results have indicators that can be looked at as biological, chemical, and physical. And again, just to refresh, this is moving the needle between where you're at right now with your soil type, and then what's the potential that that you should be able to get to. And the value of this UH Crow Lab is that the potential for your soil type has been measured for the soil types in Hawaii, not just the mainland. So if you're on an oxisol, if you're on a mollisol, we should be able to see, like, this is what you should be able to get to, and this is what you're at. So again, we're looking at, you know, you're given a certain soil type, that's what you're farming on, but what are the potential properties that you can move towards? Are you dealing with reduced organic matter, low biological activity, you know, you have a low CEC, your soil's not holding soil moisture, you have poor aggregate stability, really compacted. You don't have to live with that necessarily. Like, you can improve the soil, and this is an opportunity to show you through these lab results of what that potential is. So this chart on the left kind of shows you some of the lab results. So CO2 bursts, mineralizable nitrogen. So these are the biological indicators that you'll see on your report that we'll share with you this week. The chemistry, pH, just like on a fertility test, but also organic carbon. You're going to look at your carbon to nitrogen ratio as dissolved carbon, dissolved nitrogen, and then physically you're going to look at your bulk density. So how much pores do you have? How much air and porosity? Like, how dense is your soil? How well can your roots move through? How much can biology move through? How much are you able to hold water? How stable is your soil? So you're going to have this come through, and then here's an example in the second column of that chart of what your goals might be, and then some recommended practices. So this is a way, like, many of you have already decided what practice you're going to take on, but this is a way to look at a larger picture, kind of pull back and say, okay, I should maybe also look at these additional practices. Okay, so now we're going to move to this ranking sheet on the right. This is just a fun exercise. You guys can make this up yourself, but this is just an example I'm going to walk you through. So what you could do is you could look at what's important for you. So in this example, I'm comparing, should I use Saran screen or should I use a vegetative windbreak? And I don't want to get too much into this, but if I'm going to look at that, 1 is a low ranking, 5 is high. So if I'm using Saran screen, does that bring me towards my soil health goals? It's low, not really. I'm not increasing organic matter. I'm not putting a living root in the ground. I'm not doing all these soil health goals, but the next one is it cost effective? Is it pretty cheap? No, it's also not. It's kind of expensive, so it's also a low rating. But then we look at labor hours. Okay, it's pretty high in labor hours because it's going to save me a lot of labor. It's not a living vegetative windbreak. I'm not going to have to prune it. I'm not going to have to pay for irrigation. I'm not going to have to take care, you know, all of these things that come with a vegetative barrier. It's actually, if I am really strapped for labor time, if I've got a new crew that's working with me, I can just get these up and it's not going to require a lot of maintenance or installation cost. Will it make it easier to do other soil health practices, and will it show a pretty immediate benefit to my cash crop? Yes. Right now, my cash crop is getting nailed by wind. I've got dust on my greens. Leaves are getting ripped. I need a windbreak now. Okay, so those are both high. So this is just an example of how you might look at, okay, how many lows, how many highs do I have? I think this is pretty, you know, this is something that is worth it for this phase 1. And then I'm taking you to this next screen. So this is how you might look at, okay, what are some other practices I might do and how might I phase them out? And I don't want to lose you guys right now because we're going to get into cost benefit next, but this is just a lot of intuitive stuff, but I'm slowing you all down because you know this, but it's just, this is how you might, you know, if you had the time, and we can work with you on this if you're interested, but this is how you might look at and kind of prioritize some of the practices that you're looking at. So here's the plan. Okay, summer 2022, I'm going to get that Saran screen up. Going to do it. it's going to be costly, but it's just for the first field. Let's do it. I'm going to mulch too because that's important to my type of crop. It's something I can do now. But cover crops, I'm going to wait until the rainy season because it's just kind of too much to take on now, and I don't want to put in the risers. I can't put in, the whole irrigation system. I need to wait for rain. And I'm going to do the cover crop and the perennial ground cover together because I'm hoping that the cover crop can help me establish my perennial peanut or clover. So I'm going to try to do those together. And then, by winter, by the next winter, I'm going to be ready to do that vegetative windbreak, the infield windbreak for the next field I'm opening up. And I've learned from other farmers. I see their practices completely laid out for me. So I know their rates. I know how they're applying liquid tankage and compost tea. I'm going to try that one because that's easy and just given to me. And then I'm also going to try adding compost to build up nutrient reserves at the amount of 20,000 pounds per acre. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for this new field, and then we're going to invest the following winter, so winter 2023, in a more costly but permanent windbreak, a perimeter windbreak of trees. So this is just like, you guys know this, but we're just laying it out for you as an example. Okay, so I promised that we would look at and kind of explain that there's different savings calculations based on the practice. So with windbreak, we're going to really dive into this really deeply with Megan at this next slide. But I just, how do you calculate savings from windbreak? So the way that it's done with other farms and through research is to basically calculate a 20 to 30% evapotranspiration rate reduction with a windbreak. So say you are installing a cover crop, you can anticipate that you're going to save 20 to 30% water requirements on that because you have this improved evapotranspiration rate by this percentage. So next, carbon amendment. How do you look at the savings on that? We basically, on the organic matter, we'll give you that example, but we estimate how many tons of soil is in the top 6 inches for an acre, and out of that there's certain percentages of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all of the nutrients, and so we account for those nutrient contributions based on the percentage of organic matter. So you can anticipate if you're going to add another 1%, so another 20,000 pounds to your field at that rate, which is 40 cubic yards, that you can anticipate an additional amount of percentage of all of those nutrients. They won't be necessarily available to your crops, but they will be building up your reserves. So that's how you can kind of look at that. In cover crop, we can get into that again, but it's reduced pesticide weed management, compaction. It's not looking just at nitrogen and other nutrient contributions, but also looking at reduced leaching. So there's up to 80% captured nutrients in a cover cropping system versus 30 to 50% in a conventional system. And then lastly, I just want to let you know that we have all of this work that we've done on a spreadsheet that we can give to you. And it also includes a tab on kind of pricing. So if you feel like you don't have the time for this, we did get this from GoFarm. So we do have costing information on irrigation, fertilizers, weed cloth, so all of the things that you might cost out, and then now we're showing you the way to do your savings. And so if you're interested, please send in the chat right now that you'd like us to send you the spreadsheet, and you can start just playing around with it. So Megan, I'm going to have you share with us right now how you did this, how you looked at this cover crop windbreak design.
Okay. Thanks. So yeah, we worked with a farmer in the cohort who was focused on creating a windbreak and cover crop design for their soil health practice throughout this cohort. And they had cover cropped before, but were unsure if the benefits of cover cropping outweighed the high costs of irrigating the cover crops. And so we wanted to do a kind of cost benefit analysis to see how implementing a windbreak might improve the feasibility of cover cropping for their operation. So our first step was to calculate the cost of the windbreak. This is another Excel sheet that we have. You just have to input some measurements and the rest will calculate for you. If you're interested in that, let us know. But we calculated the cost of this windbreak, which was a bamboo windbreak. It'll be about 20 to 25 feet tall and protect around 3 acres of their operation. And it was 570 feet in length. The categories of costs that we included were the irrigation costs, like the actual water bill costs, as well as the poly tubing, the drip line, the emitters, a riser, and then we also looked at the cost of weed mat and amendments, as well as the actual plant species with the bamboo in this case. And so the total cost of implementing the windbreak came out to $8,651. India, can you? Thanks. The next step that we did was calculating the total cost of cover crops for their operation. So we included the irrigation estimates based off their previous cover cropping, and we also included the cost of cover crop seed. So this cost is a little less detailed than the windbreak, and neither of them include labor. So it's definitely something important to consider if you're going to do this for your own operation, but they're great to get a general idea. So in this example, they were considering doing 3 acres of cover cropping with sun hemp and Piper Sudan, and they were going to irrigate for 4 months. And the total cost of this came out to be $1,798. So right now we have that the windbreak is going to cost around $8,600, and the cover cropping will cost $1,800. Next. Then we went on to look at the benefit analysis. And one really difficult thing about looking at the benefits of soil health practices are that they're really difficult to monetize, super difficult to monetize how much money you're saving by increasing your microbial activity or other things like that. So for windbreaks, the cost savings were based solely on a reduction in irrigation requirements. Like India mentioned earlier, we found some cool research that demonstrated that windbreaks can reduce evapotranspiration by 20 to 30%. So from that, we made an assumption that the irrigation requirements would be reduced by 25%, which will also translate to a reduction in your monthly irrigation bill. So we looked at how much it would cost to plant 3 acres of cover crops without the windbreak, and that came out to $1,798. And then we looked at how much it would cost with the windbreak already implemented and doing its job at protecting those 3 acres and reducing the irrigation requirements by 25%. And that came out to $1,469. So that was about $330 per month, or $330 per cover crop cycle in savings. And that's not super enticing compared to the cost of the windbreak, but this isn't accounting for how much it's saving them on their regular crop, like their cash crop irrigation bills, which would probably be really significant. And it also doesn't include the other benefits that come with implementing a windbreak, like potential increase in plant health and plant productivity due to cooler soil temperatures and less disturbance from wind. And it also doesn't include the potential increase or improvements in soil health due to less erosion. So this is a low ballpark of savings, but it's nice to have a number. Next. I also ran through a cost benefit analysis for a theoretical farm. It was a 1 acre farm with diverse crop rotation that had an annual irrigation cost of $3,060. And so to implement a bamboo windbreak that would protect 1 acre of their production system, it would come out to $2,100. And that would save them, implementing that windbreak would save them an estimated $765 annually on their irrigation bill. So it would only take about 3 years for the windbreak to pay itself off by reducing that irrigation bill. And yeah, we have all of the Excel sheets if you're interested in working through this yourself. And it's also something you can do fairly easily on your own operation, just if you know how much your irrigation bill is per month or per year, and you work through either through the Excel sheet or just your own knowledge of how much it would cost to implement the windbreak, and then reducing your irrigation bill by 20 to 30%. And yeah, that can give you a rough estimate of how windbreaks can help save you money on your water bill. And I think that is it for the windbreak cover crop design cost benefit analysis.
Thanks, Megan. And of course, I had to take this big route of going out of the presentation again.
Oh, no worries.
But yeah, I don't know how you guys, just to feel your pulse, I mean, it is, we've got 30 minutes left, but is there anybody, Megan, if you can host it, but is there anybody that wants to kind of ask questions for Megan or respond to that? Like, would that kind of information be helpful?
Yeah, I see some people did put in the chat that you guys would like the spreadsheet. I'll definitely send it to you. And if there's any other specific questions, I've got my eye on the chat.
Okay, thank you guys. Yeah, so I'll just keep going. Sometimes it's hard to tell if there's a balance between, okay, we're enjoying this and we're being passive, or no, actually I really need to talk to keep myself awake here. But yeah, I mean, I guess if we can see not going into the red and we can see some kind of payoff for these practices, as Megan mentioned, there's just so many non-monetary value. So doing these cost savings and seeing, it's pretty shocking probably to have it as a number. It's probably hard to look at as a farmer and be like, I would actually spend this in irrigation, actually spend this in cover crop. I would invest, this $8,000 plus for windbreak. It's probably scary to really look at that, but that's part of us being business owners. And again, we're trying to look at, translating these costs, telling our stories, and also, hopefully seeing some improved yields and plant health. This next slide looks at another practice. So we mentioned that each practice has a different way of calculating savings. And so we looked at windbreaks, and now we're going to look at compost. And so I think Megan shared this at our workshop at Thrive on May 10th. But actually, this is also a spreadsheet we can share. This is an additional spreadsheet. But she was trying to look at, at what application rate and what are the costs for Hawaiian earth versus island topsoil. But I'm just going to look at the rate of 20 tons per acre for the interest of I want to create a 1% increase in organic matter. And so I am looking at this rate to build up nutrient reserves. I am looking at the calculation of it's going to cost me $406 for delivery, unless I have my own dump truck like some of our fellow farmers have access to on this call and part of this cohort. And I'm seeing that's going to cost me $1,600 for this application rate for 1 acre. So again, this is 40 cubic yards needed to apply 6 inches of compost per acre, and this is the 20 tons per acre. And so we've looked at this. We've heard this from our extension agents that if you want to condition the soil, you apply lower. But if you want to apply to build up nutrient reserves, you're going to apply at this rate. So one way to look at the savings is to look at the, we could call them nutrient credits or the contribution. So really similar to our cover crop calculator, which calculates the amount of nitrogen we can anticipate from different cover crops. And again, that value changes based on when you terminate a cover crop. And it's also the cover crop calculator looks at plant available nitrogen. This is looking more at nutrient reserves. So these nutrients will not necessarily be plant ready, plant available. But this is what the research shows, and a lot of this research is out of Ohio State University, but out of what's typically considered to be present, and your top 6 inches of soil for 1 acre is 1% organic matter, or 20,000 pounds. So out of that 1% organic matter, you can anticipate that 1,000 of that is nitrogen. And then you can see on this chart, 100 pounds will be phosphorus, 100 potassium, 100 sulfur, and then there is 10,000 pounds or 5 tons of carbon. And so we'd need to plug in our own values of how much the fertilizer would cost to add, so how much fertilizer is per pound for nitrogen, but in this estimate is 50 cents per pound. I know some people use tankage or some people use urea, and there's different rates on that, which you could plug in on that spreadsheet that we have from GoFarm. But this is just to give you, just to start throwing in some numbers. So we have estimated 50 cents a pound for nitrogen at that 1,000 pounds would be $500. So just giving you some time to kind of soak this in, that you can start to see how much nutrient contribution will come from adding 1% organic matter. And again, if you're looking at applying that compost at that rate to build nutrient reserves, you're hopefully building up to 1% organic matter in that top 6 inches. So that's just a goal. These are estimates, but this does play around with some numbers. And so if you wanted to calculate your cost, which we've done with some farmers, we're not getting into the details of it, but your costs are delivery fee, the cost of the compost, labor hours of how you're going to spread it, and it's pretty simple on the cost. And this is a way to look at the savings for compost application. Okay, so now cover crops. That's a little different. So cover crops, we have a presentation on this in that Tavuti platform. I'm going to give you the link again, but that's what you used to get your certificates for the first 3 sessions for Together We Farm. This is a platform we're building up. It's a platform that we're hoping to share our soil health practices on. So features that show you like, oh, hey, I want to use liquid tankage and compost. How are people applying that? What's the rate? What's, what are they just all the details laid out so it's easier for you, and also some costing information. So Tovuti has different resources specifically for today's session, which is focused on branding and kind of budgeting for our cover crops. And so just to kind of go over what's in one of our presentations, the way to calculate savings for the practice of cover cropping is looking at reduced compaction. So the way they do that is they look at the cost of a subsoiler. So if you operate it, or if you need to rent it, what's the cost? So just reducing that. So hopefully, as you open up fallow land, you might need to rip a few fields, but eventually, as you're getting into a system of using cover crops that have a deep root, you're hopefully not needing to use the subsoiler as often. Reduce herbicide, so that's the cost of an herbicide, but also the labor to apply the herbicide or to weed. Like organic practices and operations, a lot of us spend a lot of labor on weeding. So what is that, and how long can that be replaced with cover crops? How successful can it be replaced by cover crops? So weeding is a huge labor cost, a huge cost of operating our businesses. Then really similar to the organic matter, what's the contributions of nutrients, specifically looking at nitrogen and phosphorus that this crop is making available. And again, if you terminate it early versus if you terminate it later, that same species of cover crop will have a different C to N ratio. And as we know, if you terminate it earlier, you're going to have more nitrogen contribution. If you wait for that sun hemp and you terminate it later, you're going to have more carbon. So looking at that and using the cover crop calculator. And then, as I mentioned, there is also the calculation of how much nutrients are not being leached out, how much are you kind of being able to capture in the system where you have the nutrient cycling working, so where you have active biology and you have good soil aggregate structure. So it's up to 80%. So you're going to capture 80% and not have that leached off or tied up, versus only 30% to 50% in a conventional system. So that's how you're looking at some of your savings. So this is an example of one of the farmers in our cohort who just wanted to look at just the weed and herbicide reduction. So going back, so it's you can see here that it's bolded. We just want to look at the savings from just this one component, just reduce herbicide. And so with doing that, it allows you to not look at too many things at once, and maybe you can dive in deeper. So here we've estimated the cost of the conventional practice. So how much am I spending on the herbicide product, and how much will I save when I don't need to apply this? So we are estimating that you're going to save $150 per acre on not needing to use this herbicide product. And then for labor hours, say you're applying, it's 10 hours for one person, and you're paying that person $25 an hour. So that's $250 per application. And say we're anticipating that this cover crop, we're going to try to get it going for 5 months. So it's like Sudex or Sudan. We're going to weed whack it. We're trying to get more applications out of it. Based on what we've heard from some of our extension agents and some of the farmers in our cohort, you can milk that cover crop a lot longer, but we're just going to extend this out to 5 applications, 5 months of the cover crop being in the ground. So we're saying that this $1,250 savings in labor. So the total cost of that herbicide application with the labor is $1,400 for 5 months. Is probably pretty low. I don't think I have this quite accurate. But now we're looking at the cost of the cover crop. So $60 per acre, you see it at one time. Irrigation, say we're going to put it in a riser and we're going to have to lay down some polytubing, whatever we're going to use. Estimate that at $450, and then say our irrigation bill for 5 months is $700. So we have $1,210 in cost. We still have a balance of $190 that's not in the red. So this is just really simple. You guys can just do plus and minus of savings and cost. I'm just putting this out here to show you that this is very doable. You can actually, you know, without trying to do too much, I'd really recommend that you just try to isolate one type of savings. If you're just trying to look at the savings on weeding and labor hours, that would be huge, and you could really just focus on that. How long is that cover crop providing weed suppression services? Is it really working? And then how much am I really spending on weeding? Looking at that, doing some time studies. So I would challenge everyone today to look at that one component if you're going to do cover crops. And we're almost going to kind of conclude here. It's 5:37. This could be too much information, but I just wanted to introduce you to the term partial budget. And basically, this is a way to not look at just cost and benefits for your practice, but it's to also look at increased revenue and yield. So some of you guys are looking at, with this application of liquid tankage and compost, what will be my yield on my kale crop, and how much can I extend this kale crop? So how long can I have it in the ground? So some of you are looking at this. I just wanted to show you that this is an NRCS template. This one does not have dollar amounts, but this is some of the things that they look at: reduce cost, increase revenue. So they kind of break it up like this. So this is a template that you could use. And all of these resources are offered in resources that I've uploaded to that learning platform we call it Tavuti. Excuse me one second. I'm going to plug in my computer. Okay, so there are a number of resources that are out there to help you do a partial budget if you want to. So this slide is just NRCS's portal. So they have so many case studies. They have guides that are updated as recent as 2021. And so this is the URL. I can put this in the chat, or Megan, if you can help me put it in the chat. And this is also available on our learning platform as a resource. American Farmland Trust is another one that provides really great case studies and some examples. They have a tool called Comet, so that's an interactive spreadsheet that lets you really get into what we're calling a partial budget. So that's if you want to get into like really tracking your yield and revenue, you can use this kind of these kind of resources. And this is an example. I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a second, but this is like American Farmland Trust. This is an example of what a partial budget would look like. So on the left, you see increases of net income. Again, this is centered on revenue and yield. And on the left, you see decrease. And so you can see what they've looked at to come up with those numbers. They've done 100 farms. And then Soil Health Institute is another. So they also have used the same kind of cost benefit and partial budget analysis with a lot of different operations, different scales. And so this is another resource to look at. This is an example of how they do their kind of partial budget, looking at revenues and reduced expenses. Okay, and then again, this is Soil Health Institute's resources on our own Tavuti website. So this is for those who weren't able to make it. We're recording this, and here's some of the resources. You can see today's talk on partial budget. You can see what Matt and Trinity talked to us about, and also a whole walkthrough with an NRCS lead-in economist who can show us how to do a cost benefit and partial budget for a cover cropping system, if you want to look at all of those components. And this is just a last kind of slide on what indicators the UH lab will look at. So as we meet with you guys one-on-one, this is what the UH lab looks at for not fertility, but the indicators of soil health. And we'll be receiving this for your farm, for your soil. So I just wanted to go ahead and open this up right now for any questions. We're at 5:40, we're 20 minutes early, and I was hoping we actually can get out early. I'm going to launch a little poll, so for those who are still on, can you fill this out? It would be fun for us to see this. But also, I just want to know what your questions are for us next week, because your questions are probably similar to everybody else's questions. So you're going to get lab results. What are you going to do with them? What do you want to know? Like, what do you want us to help you with when you get your lab results? As far as costing, how important is it for you to have us really help you cost out your practices? Are you stuck there? Do you really need to look at savings? Will that help you? Maybe you're working with upper management and you need us to really run that through for you. Or maybe it's still your design. Maybe you're just kind of gotten in the weeds and you're getting really complex and you're like, I need to pull back. Can you help me kind of look at this design? Just give me a different perspective. So I thank you guys for filling out this poll right now. This is interesting. So what will help you select and prioritize soil health practices? I've seen a lot of people say lab results, in-field observations, and then clear design and order of operation. Okay. And then Megan, yeah, do you want to go ahead and
I was just going to say, if anybody wants to talk through anything rather than go in the chat, I think you can raise your hand and I can shift you over to be able to talk to us rather than in chat. Was there something else, India?
No, and yeah, we just wanted, I think we're hearing right now live that one of the values of this cohort is being able to talk through soil health practices with other farmers. So if you don't want to be shy, if you have the time and you want to go live and just talk through, some of the information that would be helpful, or say you do want to do some costing information with us, if you want to talk through how you might do that. So I think we're going to just leave 5 minutes because it might not be the best timing for everyone. And thank you for being on this call. Sometimes at this hour, it's just great to have the ability to listen as you're doing other things and wrapping up your day. So that is also great. But I want to leave the next 5 minutes. If anyone wants to open up discussion live and with everyone, please send us a chat so we can do that. But
I'd also like to say that if there is, if you don't want to do it right now or you want to take some more time to think about it, if there is something specific that you'd like to go through with us, like whether it's, the costing information on your soil health practice or more in depth, maybe design recommendations to like taking into account your soil health test, or help with creating like a ranking sheet of what kind of soil health practices might be best for operation, you guys can email us as well. We just want to have as much specific information and preparation as possible when we do these one-on-ones with your test results.
it's been cool to look at the polls, guys. You can see everyone's responses, and I think you can vote more than once on something, so it's not just like there's multiple choice, so you can choose more than one. But we're seeing that it's really helpful to have your own in-field observations and soil health goals. So, again, the value of all of this is, you guys are passionate about this and you study this yourself, so it's really just helping you slow down and take time for this. But, it's really kind of looking at your lab results and setting your own soil health goals along with what you're observing. So I'm seeing that those are two of the highest values in helping you kind of select and prioritize, along with just trying to kind of think through order of operation and which practices should come first, which ones can kind of benefit being done together. So I see some of that. And then as far as one-on-one sessions, most of the questions are around costing and design. So if you guys don't mind, it sounds like actually going live isn't the best method, but can you send us a quick chat on what costing information or what design element you're getting stuck on that you'd like to focus on your one-on-one? So just, you can send it directly to Megan or I, or to everyone, but I know you're not alone in what you're dealing with, but this is going to help us, and this is the quickest and easiest way for us to give you better service when we meet with you this week. So if you don't mind, send in a chat really quick of what you want to focus on specifically. When you say cost and information, or when you say design, what specifically for your own operation do you want to go over when we meet one-on-one so we can prep that? And I think finally, yeah, it was just helpful and just interesting to hear what you felt was most valuable of what we've done so far. And it looks like getting the lab results is something you guys are excited and feel is helpful, and also time with extension agents, and also time talking with other farmers. So that's pretty rad, because that's kind of the meat of all of this. So awesome. Okay, thank you, Ivy. I see that you're saying you're looking at a stage design, which most of us are. So a stage design around the practice of windbreak, and that you'd really like to look at what you can do for phase 1 as you open up this new field, and then what you might be able to be ready for phase 2. And so we will work on that. And I think you and I have been in contact a little more than some of the rest of us. So thank you so much. Yeah, Remy, Haley, Drew, anybody else on this call, do you have any other specific ways that you'd like us to work with you on cost and information or design? Like, where are you stuck? Where can we help you? What can we provide you with? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and log us off, but I think this was great to really hear about, you know, what Matt and Trinity shared with us. Thank you, Remy. Thank you, everyone out there. And we're going to record this. It is a lot of information to digest, and it's, you know, it's just something, it's just another tool. It's likely something that you could come back to when you're ready, but it's going to be recorded and always there. So I'll send you this link when we do our one-on-ones. So this was kind of an introduction. It was a fire hose, but when you're ready to come back to it, the recorded session will be there, and also those interactive spreadsheets. We'll email those to you, and they'll also be available on this learning platform. So we're trying to put everything together in one spot. So when you're ready to come back around to it, it's going to be there for you. So thank you guys so much, and we're going to say hui ho. We've got the last session, which is on the 28th. It's actually Remy's birthday. And so we won't be able to see Remy and Dan, but Carlos, I think, will be there. And we're going to be sharing out soil health management plans that we've been able to develop with Hua Orchard and with Lonahana Estates Chocolate. So we're really excited to share with you what would be a soil health management plan. So it basically takes a lot of what we said today and puts it together. So it puts together your lab results, it puts together all your soil health practices, and we're looking at how to improve it, because Hawaii-wide, everyone's interested in, you know, what do farmers value in this plan in itself. And so far what we've heard is, give us some tools to prioritize these practices, to cost out these practices, to make some decisions. And so we're trying to include that. We're going to share this out with you on the 28th, which is next Tuesday. And we're going to give away some gifts from Solvita. So those like in-field CO2 test and some swag from Patagonia, which is just fun. And so stay tuned. We're going to be doing one-on-ones with you this week. And then next Tuesday is our last session. After that, we go to Kauai, Maui, and Hawaii Island. You guys can continue to log on to that learning platform. We're going to keep growing it. We're going to keep learning. Eventually, I hope that we all get certified and we can all have help telling our stories, not just individually, but as a collective. And so thank you once again, and hui hou.